You woke up this morning, made your coffee, maybe sat down to read the paper or watch the news, just like you've done for years. Everything felt normal, routine, ordinary. But what if something was changing inside your brain right now, and you had no idea it was happening? Scientists recently discovered that the brain sends warning signals years before memory problems appear, and most people miss every single one. For decades, we've been told that memory loss is the first sign of dementia, the thing we should watch for, the red flag that tells us something's wrong. Almost everyone believes this. Doctors look for it first, families wait for it to appear, and entire screening tests are built around remembering words and dates. But here's what researchers are now discovering. By the time memory problems become obvious, the disease has already been working silently for years. The brain was trying to tell you something long before that first forgotten name, and chances are you dismissed every signal as normal aging. A landmark study found that some dementia warning signs appear up to 9 years before memory decline becomes noticeable to doctors or family members. What stunned researchers most was that these early signals had nothing to do with forgetting things. They showed up in completely unexpected ways. If you want to know exactly what these hidden warning signs look like and how to recognize them in yourself or someone you love, stay with me until the end. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing that people from so many different places are taking their brain health seriously. Think about the last time you noticed something different about yourself or someone close to you. A change that felt small, easy to explain away as just getting older. Maybe they stopped calling friends as often. Maybe they seemed less interested in hobbies they used to love. Maybe they just seemed a little more tired than usual. We tend to dismiss these changes because they don't fit the picture we have in our heads of what dementia looks like. And that's exactly the problem. The brain is incredibly complex, and when something starts to go wrong, it doesn't always announce itself with obvious memory problems first. Instead, it might affect motivation, or balance, or even the sense of smell, all systems connected to the same networks that eventually control memory. Modern brain research has confirmed something that families have noticed for generations. People change in subtle ways long before they start forgetting names. What you're about to learn are 5 warning signs that have nothing to do with memory, but everything to do with early dementia detection. Pay very close attention, because recognizing these signs early could give you or someone you love years of better quality of life and treatment options. Sign number 1, loss of motivation and initiative, what doctors call apathy. This is not the same as feeling sad or depressed. It's something different. Apathy shows up when someone who used to take initiative suddenly stops. They don't start projects anymore, they don't make plans, they don't seem driven by anything. Maybe they used to organize family gatherings, tend a garden with pride, or stay active in their community, but now they just sit and let things happen around them. Family members often think the person is becoming lazy or depressed, but apathy is actually a distinct symptom recognized in official Alzheimer's diagnostic guidelines. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that apathy might signal the brain's shift from mild cognitive problems to full Alzheimer's disease. The study tracked people over time and discovered that loss of drive and motivation appeared consistently before memory decline became severe enough for a formal diagnosis. The National Institute on Aging revised their diagnostic guidelines in 2011 to include impaired motivation, loss of drive, and decreased interest in previous activities. These are now officially recognized as early behavioral changes in the Alzheimer's continuum, not just personality quirks or mood problems that will pass on their own. What makes apathy so dangerous is that it's invisible to most screening tests, and families tend to explain it away with phrases like, "He's just getting older," or "She's earned the right to relax." But here's the key difference. True apathy is a change from the person's baseline. Someone who was always energetic and engaged suddenly becomes passive and indifferent. They stop caring about things that used to matter deeply to them, not because they're tired or overwhelmed, but because the brain circuits that generate motivation are being affected. If you notice this kind of change in yourself or someone close to you, it's worth mentioning to a doctor, especially if it represents a shift from how the person has always been. The earlier apathy is recognized as a potential neurological symptom rather than a character flaw. The sooner proper evaluation and support can begin, and that window matters enormously. Apathy often appears alongside social withdrawal, another early sign. The person stops reaching out to friends, stops attending events they used to enjoy, stops participating in conversations. They might still be physically present, but emotionally and mentally they've stepped back, and that withdrawal is the brain signaling that something has shifted in its ability to engage. Families sometimes feel hurt or confused, thinking their loved one doesn't care anymore, but the truth is, the brain's ability to generate caring has been compromised by disease. Understanding this distinction can transform how families respond, moving from frustration to compassion, and from waiting for things to get better to seeking medical guidance early. Apathy is treatable to some degree, especially when caught early. Certain medications and structured routines can help maintain engagement and slow the progression of withdrawal. The most important action you can take if you recognize this sign is to document when it started, how it differs from the person's usual behavior, and bring that information to a doctor. Don't let anyone dismiss it as just laziness or just getting older, because apathy in someone who was never apathetic before is a signal the brain is trying to send, and it deserves to be heard. Sign number 2, loss of smell. This one surprises almost everyone because most people assume smell loss is caused by sinus problems, allergies, or just normal aging. But scientists have discovered that the ability to identify smells is one of the most reliable early markers of dementia, appearing years before memory problems become obvious. Longitudinal studies, which follow people over many years, have shown that olfactory identification ability predicts cognitive decline caused by Alzheimer's brain changes with remarkable accuracy. Patients with mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's dementia perform significantly worse on smell identification tests compared with healthy older adults of the same age. What makes this finding so important is that smell loss is measurable, objective, and detectable long before a person or their family notices anything wrong with thinking or memory. The reason smell is affected so early has to do with where Alzheimer's disease starts in the brain. The areas responsible for smell are among the first to accumulate harmful proteins. These regions, located deep in the brain's temporal lobe, are connected to memory systems, which is why smell loss and memory loss often go hand in hand in dementia. But smell loss comes first, sometimes by several years, making it a potential early warning system if we know to pay attention to it and report it to a doctor. Interestingly, research has found that smell identification deficits are significantly correlated with the degree of apathy we just discussed, but not with depression or other mood symptoms. This suggests a shared underlying mechanism, meaning the same brain changes causing apathy might also be affecting the sense of smell, and both deserve medical attention. The key distinction here is between losing the ability to smell altogether, which can happen with sinus infections, and losing the ability to identify what you're smelling. Someone with early dementia might still detect that there's an odor present, but they can't tell you whether it's coffee, cinnamon, or soap. And that's the critical difference. If you or someone you know has noticed a change in the ability to identify familiar smells, especially if it's gotten worse over the past year or two, mention it to a doctor. Don't assume it's just sinuses or allergies without getting it checked, because if it turns out to be an early brain change, catching it now gives you more time and more options. Smell testing is simple, non-invasive, and increasingly used in research settings to screen for early dementia risk, though it's not yet standard practice in most primary care offices. You can even do informal tests at home. Try identifying common household smells like vanilla, lemon, coffee, peppermint, and see if the person can name them without seeing the source. If they struggle consistently with smells they used to recognize easily, that's worth documenting and bringing up at the next medical visit, along with any other changes you've noticed. The earlier smell loss is recognized as a potential neurological symptom. The earlier brain health can be properly assessed, and early assessment is always better than waiting until symptoms are severe. Smell loss is also one of the few early dementia signs that can be objectively measured and tracked over time, making it a valuable tool for monitoring brain health as we age. So if you've noticed your sense of smell isn't what it used to be, don't brush it off as just getting older. Bring it to your doctor's attention and ask if it's worth investigating further. Sign number 3, word-finding difficulty. This is different from the occasional tip-of-the-tongue moment that happens to everyone, where you can't quite remember a name or a word. What we're talking about here is a new, frequent pattern of linguistic hesitation, where someone who used to speak fluently now pauses mid-sentence, searching for words that used to come easily. They might substitute vague terms like that thing, or the stuff, instead of the specific word they're trying to say, and they do this more and more often. Emerging research indicates that decline in language and executive function may occur early in dementia, potentially before memory changes become apparent to routine screening tests. The brain networks responsible for language are closely connected to the areas affected early in Alzheimer's disease, which is why word-finding problems can appear years before memory loss. What makes this sign tricky is that everyone forgets words sometimes, so families tend to dismiss it as normal, not realizing that frequency and pattern are what matter most. If someone used to be articulate and expressive but now regularly struggles to find common words, that's a change from their baseline, and changes from baseline are always worth noting. The key difference between normal aging and early dementia is consistency. Normal aging might cause occasional word-finding pauses, but they're infrequent and don't represent a steady decline. Early dementia-related word-finding problems happen more often, get worse over time, and start to interfere with the person's ability to communicate effectively in everyday conversations. You might notice them giving up mid-sentence, saying, "never mind," or relying on you to finish their thoughts because they can't find the words they need to express themselves clearly. This can be incredibly frustrating for the person experiencing it, because they know what they want to say, but the brain isn't cooperating, and that frustration itself is a sign something has changed. Linguists and neurologists distinguish between anomia, which is the technical term for word-finding difficulty, and general forgetfulness, which affects entire events or experiences rather than just vocabulary. Anomia specifically reflects disruption in the brain's language networks, and when it appears as a new pattern in someone over 55, it deserves medical evaluation, not dismissal as normal aging. If you're noticing this in yourself, pay attention to whether it's getting worse, whether it's happening more often, and whether it's starting to affect your confidence in social situations. If you're noticing it in someone else, listen for patterns. Are they substituting vague words more often? Are they pausing mid-sentence frequently? Are they relying on you to fill in the blanks? These patterns are easier to recognize when you spend a lot of time with someone, which is why family members often notice language changes before the person themselves realizes anything is wrong. The most important thing you can do is document specific examples. Write down when you notice the difficulty, what words they struggled with, and how often it's happening now compared to a year ago. Bring those examples to a doctor, because vague complaints like they're forgetting words sometimes are less useful than concrete observations like they used to speak fluently, but now pause and search for words several times in every conversation. Early language changes are treatable to some degree with speech therapy and cognitive exercises, especially when caught early, so recognizing this sign now could make a real difference in quality of life. Don't let anyone tell you that everyone forgets words sometimes, so it's not a sign of anything serious, because frequency, pattern, and change from baseline are what matter, and those deserve attention. Sign number 4, changes in walking pattern. This is the most underappreciated sign on our list, and it deserves your full attention because the scientific evidence behind it is absolutely remarkable. A longitudinal study followed people over many years and found that slower walking speed emerged up to 9 years before detectable cognitive symptoms appeared in any other form. 9 years. That means the brain was signaling trouble through walking long before memory, language, or any other symptom showed up, and most people never connected the two. The study also found that slower gait was associated with amyloid positivity at follow-up, meaning the people who walked slower had Alzheimer's protein deposits building up in their brains. This suggests that changes in walking aren't just a side effect of aging muscles or joints. They may reflect early Alzheimer's pathology, affecting the brain's motor control centers. Dementia-related gait changes are very specific. They include decreased walking speed due to shorter stride length, increased support phase, and greater stride-to-stride variability, meaning steps become uneven. These changes are detectable even at early disease stages, long before someone would be diagnosed with dementia based on memory tests, and they're measurable with simple observation. The key point here is that we're not talking about comparing yourself to other people your age. We're talking about a change from your own baseline, from how you used to walk. If you used to walk briskly and confidently, but now find yourself taking shorter, slower, more careful steps, that's a change worth paying attention to and discussing with a doctor. If someone you love used to stride ahead and now shuffles behind, used to walk smoothly and now seems hesitant or unsteady, that's not just normal aging, it's a signal from the brain. The brain controls walking in ways most people don't realize. It's not just a mechanical process, it requires coordination, balance, spatial awareness, and timing, all managed by brain networks. When those networks start to deteriorate due to early dementia, walking is one of the first things affected because it requires so many different brain systems to work together seamlessly. What makes this sign so powerful is that it's observable and measurable. You don't need a brain scan or a blood test. You just need to notice how someone walks now compared to how they walked a year ago. Family members are often the first to notice. They might say things like, "Dad's not walking as fast as he used to," or "Mom seems unsteady on her feet lately," but they assume it's just age or arthritis. And yes, arthritis and muscle weakness can affect walking too, but when gait changes appear alongside other subtle signs like apathy or word-finding difficulty, the picture becomes much clearer. That's why it's so important to look at the whole pattern of changes, not just one symptom in isolation, because dementia rarely announces itself with just one sign. It sends multiple signals at once. If you're concerned about walking changes in yourself or someone else, here's what to do. Pay attention to speed, stride length, steadiness, and whether the person seems more cautious or hesitant than before. Document what you observe. When did the change start? How noticeable is it now? Does it seem to be getting worse? And are there other changes happening at the same time? Bring this information to a doctor and be specific. Don't just say they're walking slower. Say they used to walk a mile in 20 minutes and now it takes 35. They used to take long strides and now they shuffle. Early recognition of gait changes gives doctors a chance to evaluate balance, coordination, and neurological function before other symptoms become severe. And that early window is incredibly valuable for planning and intervention. Sign number 5. Acting out dreams during sleep. This is the most surprising sign we'll discuss today, and it's also one of the most scientifically validated early predictors of a specific type of dementia. The medical term is REM sleep behavior disorder, and it's characterized by the loss of normal muscle paralysis that happens during the dreaming stage of sleep, called REM. Normally, when you dream, your body is completely still, paralyzed temporarily, so you don't physically act out whatever is happening in the dream, and that's a protective mechanism built into healthy sleep. But in REM sleep behavior disorder, that paralysis doesn't happen. The person physically moves, talks, shouts, punches, kicks, or thrashes around while they're dreaming, sometimes violently enough to hurt themselves or their partner. This is not the same as occasional sleep talking or twitching, which almost everyone does sometimes. REM sleep behavior disorder involves complex, vigorous movements that match the content of vivid, often unpleasant dreams. The person might be dreaming they're being chased or fighting off an attacker, and their body acts it out in real time, punching the air, kicking the blankets, shouting or swearing loudly. What makes this sign so important is that REM sleep behavior disorder is now well established as a strong predictor of neurodegeneration, particularly a group of diseases called synucleinopathies. Synucleinopathies include Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's disease, both caused by abnormal protein deposits in the brain, and REM sleep behavior disorder is one of the earliest signs of these conditions. In fact, REM sleep behavior disorder can develop years or even decades before Lewy body dementia symptoms, like memory loss, hallucinations, or movement problems, become obvious to anyone. A multi-center autopsy study found that REM sleep behavior disorder increases the risk of confirmed Lewy body dementia sixfold, meaning people with this sleep disorder are 6 times more likely to develop this type of dementia. That's an extraordinarily strong association, and it makes REM sleep behavior disorder one of the most reliable early warning signs we have for predicting future neurodegeneration in certain dementia types. The reason this happens has to do with where Lewy body disease starts, in the brain. It begins in the brainstem, the area that controls sleep and muscle paralysis during REM, long before it affects memory or thinking. So by the time someone develops REM sleep behavior disorder, the disease process has already begun, silently affecting the brain's deepest structures, and it will eventually spread to areas that control cognition. If you or your partner has started acting out dreams, especially if this is a new behavior that wasn't present years ago, it's absolutely essential to bring this up with a doctor and ask for a neurology referral. This is not something to dismiss as harmless or normal. It's not the same as talking in your sleep occasionally or having a restless night now and then. It's a specific, diagnosable sleep disorder. Proper diagnosis requires a sleep study called polysomnography, where your sleep is monitored overnight in a lab to confirm whether REM sleep behavior disorder is present and rule out other sleep problems. If REM sleep behavior disorder is confirmed, it doesn't mean dementia is inevitable or imminent, but it does mean that close monitoring by a neurologist is important and early intervention may slow progression. There are also practical safety measures that can protect you and your partner, removing sharp objects from the bedroom, padding the bed frame, even sleeping in separate beds if necessary to prevent injury. The most important message here is that REM sleep behavior disorder is a medical symptom that requires medical evaluation, not something to ignore or laugh off as just weird dreams or getting older. If this sign is present, it's one of the clearest signals the brain can send that something neurological is beginning, and recognizing it early gives you the best chance to plan, prepare, and access care. But before you start watching for these signs, there's one critical mistake almost everyone makes, and it's a mistake that can turn helpful vigilance into harmful anxiety. The mistake is this: comparing yourself or someone you love to a checklist and assuming that one sign means dementia is certain, when the truth is much more nuanced than that. These signs are warning signals, not diagnoses. They mean it's time to talk to a doctor and get properly evaluated, not time to panic or assume the worst without professional input. What matters most is change from baseline, meaning a shift from how the person has always been, and patterns, meaning multiple signs appearing together over time, not isolated incidents. Here's what to do starting today. First, pay attention to changes, not comparisons. Don't compare yourself to other people your age. Compare yourself to how you were a year or two ago. Second, write things down. Keep a simple journal of changes you notice, when they started, how often they happen, and whether they're getting worse, because specific examples help doctors far more than vague concerns. Third, bring a trusted family member or friend to your doctor visit. They can corroborate what you're reporting and share observations you might not be aware of yourself, which gives the doctor a fuller picture. And finally, remember that early evaluation is always worthwhile, even if everything turns out to be fine, because peace of mind is valuable, and if something is wrong, catching it early gives you time and options. Remember when we started this video, and I asked you to think about your morning routine, how everything felt normal, how you had no idea something might be changing silently. Now you know what to look for. You know the signs the brain sends years before memory fades, and that knowledge gives you power. If this video helped you see something you didn't see before, leave a like and share it with someone you care about. You'll notice there are 2 videos on the screen now, and I'm sure you'll want to keep learning how to protect your brain health with us. Take care of yourself, and remember, noticing changes early isn't something to fear, it's something that gives you control.